Welcome to our In Focus discussion. Once every month, we dedicate one of our shows to climate change to bring you stories of global warming. Tonight, we will cover air quality, microclimates, and art. Kicking off our conversation tonight is Carrie Kelly, Associate Professor of Chemical Engineering at the University of Utah. And Carrie, thank you so much for joining us tonight and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'd like to start our conversation with learning about what made you decide to focus your chemical engineering background on air quality.
So I moved to Utah in 2000, and I was really surprised to learn about this whole inversion thing. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And then I became interested in it, and in 2008 or 9, I got a chance to serve on the State Air Quality Board. So I really learned more and more about the specific challenges we have sort of living in this bowl with dense population.
And this is something that now affects you because you moved here. So of course you have a vested interest in it. So what is the connection between global warming and air quality in Utah?
There is a big link. There are three main things. One is that we saw it this summer. So warmer climate, more wildfires, more wildfire smoke. That was really obvious this summer. Then we also have higher levels of ozone, so higher temperature equals higher ozone. We saw that again this summer. And the other thing is the same emissions that drive global warming also give us poor air quality. So the emissions from our automobile and power plants, transportation, all these things feed to both global warming and poor air quality.
We saw a pretty extreme year. I mean, there were points in the year where Utah had the worst air quality in the nation and sometimes in the world. We saw, like you said, wildfire smoke, ozone, and particulate matter being unsafe on several days. Is this an unusual year this year? Have we been seeing sort of an abnormal trend?
Well, the trend has been to more and more wildfire smoke. So we're getting warmer temperatures. There's been 100 years of wildfire suppression. So we're sort of making up for lost time. And I think this could potentially be the new normal. Just unfortunate. I hope not too.
No.
And I think we can only hope that they'll work harder on forest management and prescribed burns, but I think it's going to be a while.
Now, unfortunately, there are also other bad contributors to our air quality, right? Can you talk about some of those and how you're thinking about our everyday actions impacting our air quality levels?
Exactly. So a lot of what we do affects air pollution where we live and breathe. So our transportation choices, our automobiles, home heating, power. So even electricity, especially when you're looking at ozone, the emissions that come from all the power plants that feed our grid, those contribute to ozone. And that's very important in the summer. So all the decisions we make, where we set our thermostat, how we get to and from work, all those things add up to the air quality that you and I live with.
And that means we all have a responsibility, right, to do our part to preserve air quality. I understand you're also working on a couple of projects. Can you tell us about your real-time air quality sensor systems as well as the Salt Lake County map?
Okay, sure thing. So we have been working to set up a network of air quality sensors because I think you're talking about microclimates, and there are microclimates of air quality in the Salt Lake Valley. So it's in part due to our complex terrain in our mountains. And then, so the sensors that we have placed out, we correct those, so they're very, very low cost, but sometimes they're not so accurate. So we work hard to correct that information and present it in a way that people can understand it. And we've seen a lot of interesting trends. For example, we saw the Farmington Bay wildfire of, I think, about a week ago. So that was really dramatic on our sensor network. We see things like often the west side of the Salt Lake Valley, where the inland port's going, where the airport is, more transportation, we see higher levels of particle pollution. So that can give you information about air quality where you live.
And that is very crucial in getting the public to understand the gravity of this issue. And you also have another project to help small businesses in Utah to become more energy efficient and improving air. Tell us about that.
Yes, it's called the Stepwise program, and I'm working with some faculty members at the Intermountain Industrial Assessment Center, and we send groups of students out to small businesses and give them ideas for improving efficiency, saving money, and improving air quality. So how could you possibly go wrong?
I know. Sometimes you have to create those incentives.
Yeah, and it's great that our students learn a lot. They get to visit different types of businesses, and then the companies actually save money and they reduce emissions. So I'm very excited about that project.
And Kelly, we have to wrap, but real quick, final thoughts. What are some things that maybe you want to mention that we haven't talked with in this conversation?
Yes, so I think that you and I, all of our decisions collectively make a difference. And then and I think some people are going to talk later about activism. And then if you're really enthusiastic, the legislative session is coming up, so you can get involved that way.
Great tips there. Thank you so much. You've been hearing from Carrie Kelly, Associate Professor of Chemical Engineering at the University of Utah. Carrie, thank you so much for coming down and sharing your insight with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the conversation.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to our monthly In Focus discussion tonight on the impacts of global warming. Up next via Zoom is Matt Yost, Assistant Professor of Agriculture and Applied Sciences at Utah State University. Matt, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. It's great to have you. I'd like to start this conversation with talking about you. You study agriculture, water management, and climate change. How did you get interested in those subjects?
Yeah, these subjects affect us at least 3 to 5 times every day as we eat a meal or put clothes on. And I didn't always appreciate this. I was raised on a dairy farm in southern Idaho, and when I went off to college, I wanted to get far away, actually. And might have had something to do with waking up at 4 in the morning and milking cows. But after a few years of college, I realized quickly that I actually appreciated and loved agriculture, and so changed my major, and 15 years later and 4 degrees, I've never looked back.
Now, based on your personal and your professional experience, how does Utah do with large and small scale agriculture? What kind of crops do we have, and are they productive?
Yeah, so Utah has a large diversity of farms, from really small farms that are a few acres up to really large ones, 10,000 acres plus. And we also have a lot of farms. Nearly 18,000 farms in the state. Our crops are quite productive. We grow alfalfa, hay, wheat, corn, cherries, safflower, barley. These are some of our major crops, and they're productive and profitable. Each year, these crops value about $500 million, and they support several million livestock in the state, and they also support about a $400 million milk industry. And so very, very productive, very profitable in the state.
Now, we are in the throes of an extreme drought. What crops are affected, and how are our producers dealing with it?
Sadly, this year, the drought has affected almost every farmer and almost every crop in several ways. A few of those ways has been less irrigation. Many farmers have had to shut off their irrigation and have had almost half of what they normally have. Because of that, we have a shortage of crops in the state, which is causing lots of issues for farmers. It's causing less feed available, and as a result, there's lots of bad implications. So many farmers are selling livestock that they can't afford to feed. Others who can are trying to invest in water-saving technologies, and sadly, some with little wiggle room are going out of business because of the severe impacts of the drought.
How do you see us trending with global warming? What does raising the average temperature by 1 to 2 degrees mean for our state's crops?
In Utah, one of the biggest impacts of climate change is reduced snowpack. That has and it will continue to have just huge impacts. Low snowpack means low water supply, which means irrigation and water shortage, and we've seen that this year with this major drought. These will have just long-lasting effects on Utah. Temperatures are also projected to rise. Now, for most crops, it's not an issue. Crops actually like heat, and so if we have more higher temperatures, we may have longer growing seasons and better growth of our crops. The huge caveat is that higher temperatures also mean that the crops use more water. And so if we have less water and our crops need more of it, it just compounds the issues.
So Matt, what can we do to better manage our water?
There's lots of options actually to optimize our water use in agriculture and in every way that we use water in the state. And there's lots of organizations that are looking at ways to do that, to optimize their water use. And there's lots of options, including water delivery systems, water use on the farm, and water reuse after it leaves the farm. So there's lots of organizations looking at those, and we're finding some solutions.
Matt, we have time for final thoughts. What would you like to leave our viewers with tonight?
I would say that support Utah farms. Realize that any form of agriculture is going to use a lot of water. Be aware of your water footprint and reduce it where you can, and get involved in helping to find solutions that against drought and the impacts of drought.
All right, you've been hearing from Matt Yost. He is the Assistant Professor of Agriculture and Applied Sciences at Utah State University. And Matt, thank you so much for being a part of our show tonight.
You bet, thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome to our third and final segment on our monthly look at global warming. Rounding out our conversation tonight are Elizabeth Curbelo and Hasse Borup, the co-chairs of Artivism for Earth at the University of Utah. Hi friends, thank you so much for being here tonight and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So Elizabeth, let's start with you. Why is art so important when it comes to climate change?
Yeah, people are fully aware of climate change. But they don't connect this to their daily lives. So art and creativity help people engage with their emotions, process their feelings, the loss that we are suffering, and also share with others, be creative, innovative, and communicate climate change.
I think that art is a language, and sometimes when you have to convey something to the entire world, you got to speak everybody's language, and one of those languages is art. Hasse, what about you? What do you think? Why is art so important when we talk about climate change?
Well, I mean, we can even just talk about how this project came about, which was a desire to find a different way to communicate about these things, find a valid way to have emotions about these things, as Elizabeth was alluding to. And I think when we actually ended up having over 30 collaborators from various campuses around the country, the U, Stanford, Harvard, etc. And I think what the scientists that we collaborated with were really interested in connecting with artists about was, like, as I said, we keep saying this over and over and over again. We publish study after study. We want somebody who can communicate this, and you're the communicators. You can touch people in different ways than we can through a scientific article or a newscast or something that is less in depth maybe, and also just the emotional anxiety that people feel about this. You know, we get bombarded with this, and how do we actually process this?
Well said. Hasse, can artists make a difference when it comes to addressing global warming? And if so, how can it happen?
I absolutely think we can make a huge difference. Maybe not, it's not in the sense that by doing what we're doing, people will go out and buy more solar panels or get an EV or something like that. It is to get to a deeper sort of understanding of what it is we're dealing with as a society and actually come together and collaborate. Like, I think what was one of the big things for this project was a lot of collaborators working together.
Elizabeth, what do you think?
Yeah, artists, there's some can be composers, like I am a composer, or performers like Hasse. So there are many different ways to participate and communicate. I think what is really important is interdisciplinary work, art, creativity, but also communication and humanities, and be able to communicate these complex problems with science and find solutions, inspire other people to see what artists do and how we create performance pieces, how we did it in Artivism for Earth, how we discuss and we communicate these issues. And I think mainly it's motivation and inspiring people to do things and take action.
So let's get into the meat of what you all do. Can you tell us about some of the projects that A4E, which is the acronym for Artivism for Earth, what are some that you've implemented or become involved with?
Yeah, so we had a lot of conversations with scientists, with medical doctors, authors, artists. We decided we need to get as many people as we can engage and doing things and participating. So then we decided to organize these events in 5 different parts. One of them is the video mosaic. So
and that's what we're seeing up here on the screens.
Right.
yeah, so people can send videos. They create videos inspired by Artivism for Earth, about they express their thoughts about climate change, what they do. We receive some videos of people dancing or talking. We receive a lot of videos made by children, and that was really nice. And this is open. People can still send videos. So that's one part. The other part was a student event. So students at University of Utah did interdisciplinary work. They created different pieces, and they are all on the website. They can be seen online. And then other events, the panel discussion, where we discuss the scientists and artists discuss how they find solutions and they communicate climate change. And then we also wanted to feature a significant project that was going on, that is the Crossroad project with with Utah State University. And then we had the Expressions of Loss and Hope. That is a series of pieces, performance pieces, featuring the science behind climate change.
So Hassa, what other projects do you have on deck? What does the future look like?
Well, it's interesting because we've been contacted by quite a number of really interesting organizations lately. We've had some contact of a global community group that is preparing some presentations for the COP26 summit in Glasgow next month. They want to collaborate with us. We have a number of ideas for how to move this forward, but maybe this is actually a good forum right here to also call for suggestions from your viewers, because if they go to the website artivismforearth.utah.edu, that's a very prominent way to send feedback and say, hey, this is great, I think you should try to do this, so how about this idea? So we're really interested in getting new ideas as we move forward with this. It's a movement, and you know, it's really exciting to be part of it and having kind of spark this idea that it's okay to talk about all aspects of climate change to move forward as a society on this.
And what I'm learning from seeing the videos and hearing you all talk about A4E is that it's not just traditional art. We're talking about music. We're talking about dance. It does not have to be like artwork, but art encompasses all of that. It's basically a form of expression.
Expression, exactly.
In any way. Okay, so I'm glad we clarified that. Yeah. We have time for final words. Let's start with you, Elizabeth. What would you like to leave our viewers with tonight?
I like for people to look at our website, see what we have done, feel inspired, send us suggestions, and participate. We are still open. We are receiving videos from the video mosaic, and we would like to receive more and have people participating.
Yeah.
And Hassa, what about you?
I think my main thing to sort of convey is this idea that it is a positive. It's a very big problem for society, but we can help each other by reflecting on all aspects of it and move forward, and not just be afraid of or sort of putting our head in the sand and be like, oh, I don't want to deal with this, it's too big of a problem. We all can participate and help solve this.
Well said. Let's recap one more time. The website, where do people find more information?
artivismforearth.utah.edu.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. You've been hearing from Elizabeth Curbelo and Hassa Borup, the co-chairs of Artivism for Earth, or A4E, at the University of Utah. And Elizabeth and Hassa, thank you for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure to have the both of you.
Thank you for having us.
And don't forget, we would love to hear from you about the show. We invite you to join our Facebook group by searching for ABC4 In Focus, or send us an email, infocus@abc4.com.